Can a smaller person choke out a larger person? A lot of times I hear that it's impossible or it wouldn't happen because the stronger person can overpower the weaker person. If my wife here tries to overpower me, yes, I can overpower her, strength for strength. But if it's her strength against my neck is not stronger than both of her arms. My neck is not stronger than both of her legs. My neck is not stronger than certain chokes she could make with my t-shirt. So she absolutely could choke me out. And if I don't know how to get out, I only have about 5 seconds to figure it out. And from what I've learned over years of doing jiu-jitsu is that the average person doesn't actually do anything to defend it. They panic. I see the average person the first time in jiu-jitsu in a match and they get choked and they don't think about all the different things they could rip off. They do this and freak out. And by the time you do that, you put your fingers in and then you slowly go to sleep. And depending on how long they hold it, you may never wake up. So even a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old could choke out an adult. Would they be able to get that choke in and actually, secure it and all that? Probably not. But a woman can absolutely choke out a man even twice her size. The problem is getting that choke in and locking it in, and that's where jiu-jitsu or practice come in handy. But if she can get it locked in and that guy does not know how to get out, she can definitely choke him unconscious, or a smaller person can choke a larger person unconscious pretty easily. The way that a choke works is in your 2 carotid arteries right here. It sends all the blood up to your brain. So that's the only thing that delivers blood to your brain. So in a blood choke, you want to make sure you're closing off each carotid artery, and it's not something you can hold your breath through. It's not something you can flex out of. If you close off those 2 carotid arteries, the brain goes to sleep. You see it in UFC fights or in jiu-jitsu matches. Somebody goes to sleep and you let that go. They wake up in a few seconds, usually disoriented. Sometimes they pee their pants. But if you decide to hold it for 30 to 45 seconds, they're most likely going to have permanent brain damage. And if you hold that for a minute or two, if you have to in a life-threatening situation, they're never going to wake up. So that's the way that it works. Is it's not cutting off oxygen, it's actually cutting off all the blood flow to the brain. And that's why it puts somebody out so quickly, because a lot of people think that they could hold their breath for 30 seconds and it's going to take 30 seconds to choke them unconscious. And that's just not the truth. It only takes a few seconds for somebody to be completely out unconscious. I'm going to show you real quick how to apply 2 chokes. Actually getting into the positions to apply them is going to take practice and usually some jiu-jitsu training and things like that. But I'm going to show you 2 different chokes and show you how effective they are and how quickly they work. So this one is called a rear naked choke. Usually she would have her hooks in, but for now we're just going to go over the choke. So, and the hooks, it just means her feet grabbing into my thighs. So for this choke, she wants to wrap her arm around my neck. She wants to get like this, where she's reaching, where her elbow is like beneath my Adam's apple is where she wants to be. That way her forearm muscle and bicep muscle are closing off each carotid artery. If she's more like this, she can kind of choke me out, but it's a lot easier, for me to get my fingers in there and defend, and I'm gonna be able to survive in there longer because it's not actually cutting off all the blood flow. So she wants to go all the way around. She wants to grab her own bicep and put her hand behind my head. And put your hand lower. And she wants it low on the neck. And then the thing I like to do too is put my face over the hand, because somebody's going to reach up and try and defend. And then they can't pull it off. And then, so just to show you how it works, I'm going to hold my breath and defend this without my hands. But just show you how long it takes to, pretty much go to sleep. I'll tap out before that. But go ahead, squeeze real tight. So it only takes a few seconds. By that time, like, I'm still seeing stars and everything's all fuzzy right now, but by that time you start to go black and you can feel it about to happen. That's from years of doing jiu-jitsu as well, but it's about that long. I don't know, I'll put a timer on the video, but I'm sure it's 3 to 4 seconds, and it might change, but it's going to be somewhere between 4 to maybe 12 seconds if it's locked in completely correctly and you don't pulsate and release. That's the biggest thing when you're doing the choke, is you want to have constant steady pressure. So you need to make sure that you breathe, and you need to make sure that your squeeze is like an anaconda, to where it just stays tight and gets a little tighter and a little tighter. Because if you do this, squeeze, relax, squeeze, relax, squeeze, relax, you'll consistently let blood back into the brain, which will never let them go to sleep. That's a common thing I see in the beginning of jiu-jitsu. So one more time. She wraps that around, squeezes really tight, squeeze. It only takes about that long, maybe another 2 seconds beyond that, and I would be out unconscious, and she'd be trying to lift my feet to put the blood back in my brain. So that's how, most chokes work, where you want to use a blood choke, and that's how that particular choke works, as a rear naked. Another variation of that is if she reaches around and she grabs her hands like this, and she squeezes right there, and then she pushes her face in the back of my head. That's a very good choke too. That's actually my favorite choke in jiu-jitsu. I don't usually put my hand behind the head. I go here and use my face. But you just make a simple gable grip, like a monkey clapping its hands with no thumbs, and grab and pull through and push. You have to push against the back of the head with the face so that you're making pressure to close off all that blood. But if you do that, that's a great way to do it. You don't have to remember how to put your hands. You just pull through and push, and that can, easily stop somebody. Next choke I'm going to show is a guillotine choke. It's a very common one and a good one for a self-defense situation, because when somebody attacks you and tries to take you down, you can sink that in. And if you know what you're doing, even though you don't stop the takedown, you can still put them unconscious when they take you down. And it's a very common thing you'll see in UFC or anything like that. So what would happen is you want their head to one side, and you want to wrap your arm around. You want to reach your hand up as high as you can and pull it up all the way through, and then try and put their head in your back pocket while you wrap your legs around them. I know that sounds like a lot, but I'll show you in a kind of a scenario here. So if I was taking her down, we're just going from the knees right now, whether it's knees or feet or whatever. I go to take her down, and she wraps my head up. She pulls this through and squeezes. Right there, she could finish the choke if she's able to defend the takedown. Or if I sit on your butt more. If I took her down and I took her all the way to the ground, in that process, she grabs my neck the same way. This would be the ideal position to finish it in. Around here. And so I could be the stronger person. I could be the aggressor. I overpowered her. I slammed her on her back. But she used that opportunity to wrap her arm around my neck, and her arms overpower just my carotid arteries and puts me to sleep. So in a real life situation, you don't have to overpower your attacker. You just need to overpower particular parts of their body.